Hi, my name is Michaela Jarrett. Today I'm with Kenneth Patterson. Why don't you start by telling us a little about yourself?
Okay. I grew up on a farm in Hidnight, North Carolina, about a 190-acre farm, and this is before we had tractors. That tells my age, but anyway. We had two teams of a team of horses and a team of mules. We farmed all of that with those two teams. We didn't have tractors. They had tractors, but we didn't have one. We weren't looking at them. But anyway, this is my problem. My thoughts don't always come together like they should. But anyway.
So you grew up in Hidnight?
Yeah. And we grew about everything from tobacco, cotton, corn, soybeans, truck crops, tomatoes and squash and things like that.
When was your birthday?
December the 3rd, 1925.
When you went into service, were you drafted or did you volunteer?
Well, I was going to be drafted, so I volunteered before they did.
What did you farmed before you went into service? Is that what your occupation was?
That's the family farm.
Were you married before or during your service?
After I finished college.
After you finished college, you got married?
Yeah.
When did you go into service? After high school?
Yeah.
How many years of service did you
2.
serve? You served 2 years?
Mm-hmm.
What date did you enter and discharge?
I can't tell you the exact date, but it was went in June
Mm-hmm.
and discharged. I believe I was discharged June the 6th.
What branch of service did you serve in? The Navy? What highest rank did you obtain in your service?
Seaman first class, highest rank in the Navy.
That's a great honor.
Sure. That's just one above as low as you can go.
Well, it's still
Second
an
class.
honor.
Seaman, okay, go ahead.
Where was your basic training held at?
In service,
Mm-hmm. The basic training?
it was held at Bainbridge, Maryland, boot camp. About 6 weeks of training there.
What bases were you stationed at?
I really wasn't stationed at a base.
You weren't stationed at a base?
We had an outgoing unit in New York,
Mm-hmm.
but that was just where you assembled the sailors and assigned them to their duties,
Mm-hmm.
ships they're going to be on. That's what that was.
What ships were you on? Were you assigned to?
Well, number 1 is the Wilson B. King Liberty ship, carrying supplies to Antwerp, Belgium.
Did you make any friends while you were in service?
Sure.
You had siblings that were with you, or that were in service as well, weren't they? Your siblings?
No.
No?
No siblings. Oh, I had, you're talking about siblings as my brother
Mm-hmm.
and sisters.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, we had.
Y'all served together. Did you have any friends?
Just Kermit,
Mm-hmm.
my twin brother, we served together. The rest of us were separate.
Do you remember any superior officers?
Lieutenant Moran, he was a lieutenant on the ship that we were on.
Is there something memorable about him why you remember him?
Well, he's a Yankee. And I think he's from Boston, from Massachusetts.
Was he?
Mm-hmm. He was a nice gentleman, though. I liked him.
Was he? Did you serve stateside or overseas? Or did you do a little of both? You did some both?
Yeah.
Which war did you serve in?
World War II.
World War II. Do you have any battles that you were involved in that you remember or that stood out to you?
Well, we were in Antwerp when the Battle of the Bulge took place. You may not be familiar with that battle, but this was the Germans' last offensive to try to take Antwerp, because the supplies that were being shipped to them were unloaded in Antwerp and went to the Allies to fight the Germans. And so that's the reason we was in Antwerp. And when the first trip was okay, we got to This was after the invasion
Mm-hmm.
of Normandy, and the Allied had already advanced over into parts of Europe, but the Germans made this attack and was trying to get Antwerp to take Antwerp to stop all those supplies from coming in. So they started an offensive, but the second trip we went to Antwerp was during the Battle of the Bulge, and that was, they had Antwerp completely backed out. They were looking for paratroopers to drop in Antwerp any time, but they didn't drop. And we were there in Antwerp, and you could see flying bombs. We called them buzz bombs. They'd fly about 2,000 or 3,000 feet over Antwerp, going to England. They were pilotless bombs, and they'd just fly over Antwerp. They wasn't flying very fast, and their guidance system wasn't too good. They just wanted to bomb England, and it went over there, and when they ran out of gas, they dropped on England. And we also, while we were there, noticed B-17s coming across Antwerp in perfect formation.
Mm-hmm.
It was pretty to watch. About 20 or 30 of them, all in formation, going to bomb Germany. But they didn't come back in formation. They just let it get back.
Yeah.
Straggle back.
So y'all were under attack during your time over there?
Well, no. They didn't attack Antwerp. They stopped them before they got
Mm-hmm.
there, about 40 miles.
They stopped them before?
Yeah.
That was a relief.
So I never did get in any conflict.
Mm-hmm.
That's the closest we came, I guess. But on the ship going through the cold North Atlantic, that's where the German submarines were active. And we had a lot of submarine activity when we was going across there. But they had already had enough firepower or ships to kind of escort the convoys so they wouldn't be attacked by the German Serbs. But we could hear them, and when those depth charges went off, that's what they dropped when they was trying to sink a submarine. Mm-hmm. They rolled off, it looked like a barrel. They rolled off down in the water, and it would go off. We heard a lot of those because they echoed against the hull of the ship. But fortunately, we never did have to put our guns that we were there for in action.
What weapons, were you assigned any weapons?
Yes. My twin brother and I were assigned to the 5-inch 38, the big gun.
Mm-hmm.
And our duty was to take care of it and make sure that it was ready for action.
Were there any special equipment you used besides that, that gun?
Oh, we used, no, that was it.
That was
we
it.
We had to stand watch on the ship, 8 hours on and 8 hours off. If we got in what we considered dangerous places, we would stand 4 on and 4 off, 24 hours a day.
Were there any poor conditions or hardships that you faced in service?
Just being there.
Just being there. The hairy situations or close calls, you just had it around you, it never really attacked you, correct?
We didn't have, well, the submarines was a real close.
Yeah.
Calls, but the Battle of the Bulge was, I guess, was the most dangerous cause. We just didn't know what the Germans were going to do at that time.
Mm-hmm. How was being away from your family? How was that handled?
Well, it worked okay. My mother had all of these, 6 of us in service at one time. She didn't have time to write letters to each of us all the time, so she got some carbon paper and she'd make carbons and send to us.
Mhm.
And she did a good job. She wrote us pretty regular.
All six
Keeping
of
us
you.
up to date.
Did faith play a part in helping you cope with your time in service?
The what?
Faith.
Oh yeah.
Mhm. What did you do for fun or during your time off? You said that you served 8 hours on most days. What did you do for fun after that?
Wasn't much fun.
Wasn't much fun.
Wasn't much fun you could have on a ship. Usually we slept
Mhm.
on the ship.
Any medals or awards that you received in your service?
Just the theaters,
Mhm.
3 theaters, Atlantic, Europe, and Pacific.
Do you have photos and uniforms you kept from your time in service?
Mm.
No photos and stuff.
Well, ones you saw,
Mhm.
not many.
What have you done since you left the service? What have you done as your occupation?
Well, when I left the service, I went to NC State and graduated in 1952.
Were any of your family members were in the service, weren't they? You had your siblings.
Mhm.
Are they the only ones that were in the service, or did you have previous ancestors in service? How many siblings did you have, and the names of them and your spouse or children, if possible?
Well, my younger sister stayed home on the farm and helped Mother and Dad try to do the best she could. Later on, we did have a tractor, and she drove it a lot.
Now, what was her name?
Francis.
Frances. What were the names of the other ones, the other siblings?
Quentin was the oldest brother, and Willard was second, and Frederick was third. Then here come me and Kermit, and then Francis.
And then Francis. Now, did you get married
I
after
left off Juanita there.
Juanita?
She was older than any of them.
Oh,
Any of us.
okay. Did you get married after your time in service?
No,
No.
I wouldn't get married till I got through college.
Oh, okay. But you ended up getting married.
Finally did.
What was your spouse's name?
Joyce Mooney.
Joyce. Did y'all have any children or grandchildren together?
We have children.
You have children.
We had 3.
You had 3 children. Did they have any or did they have any children?
No.
Nope.
Well, now wait a minute. We had 3 children. Joy Gardner's the oldest one. She teaches at Hidden
Mhm.
And Cindy, she's married Cindy Billy Rowe. She's a veterinarian out from Durham. She practices out
Mhm.
there. And Gary, he works at Allied Financial, Gary Patterson.
You have
He's
a.
the manager of that. Okay, then I have some grandkids. Joy Gardner has 4 grandkids. Cindy 2 and Gary 2.
Are you active in any veteran organizations?
Not really.
Not really. What would you say to somebody that was interested in going to the armed forces today?
I don't know what I'd give them advice. They just have to make it up on their own. I know that a lot of them volunteer and go. And sometimes they get special training in the service that
Mhm.
they like, and they go. And but I wouldn't want to advise one to go or not.
Mhm. Is there anything else you'd like to add to the interview today?
Yes, I'd like to indicate why we were interested in the Air Force. I had 2 brothers, older brothers that were in the Air Force. Quentin, he was a navigator, and Willard, he was a pilot on a B-24. And so we thought, Frederick, Kermit, and myself thought we'd like to be in the Air Force. So we went to Charlotte to take the physical and IQ test to see if we could make it in the Air Force. We all 3 passed it, and we were waiting to be called into the service from the Air Force. Well, we got a letter and they said they was filled up, so they didn't have any more room and they wasn't interested in us going, so we had a choice of going to the Army and Navy. Frederick went to the Army, and he was an instructor on putting some kind of electrical equipment on a tank. Kermit and I chose the Navy, and we went through boot camp, and then we was in a shipping out place. They call it OUG. No, not OUG. Outgoing unit. That's sailors that were getting ready to ship out. And we were waiting there, and somebody told us about the Naval Armed Guard, and they was calling for volunteers to go to the Navy Armed Guard service, which is service on the Liberty ships that carried the supplies everywhere, all over the world. And if we run into a problem, that we were on the ship that we could defend ourselves. And so Kermit and I decided we'd volunteer for the Naval Armed Guard. So we volunteered for that, and then we took about 6 weeks training in the Armed Guard branch of the service. And we practiced shooting every kind of a gun you could think of, including the ones that were on the ship. And it took about 6 weeks to do that before we really got on a ship and went on a Liberty ship and went to seas. First 2 weeks I was out there, I was seasick. And I guess that's about all I got to say. We went to Southampton, England, and was docked there till they got ready for us to go on into Antwerp to unload our supplies. And I never did get sick after that. We got in some big weather storms later down around Cape Town, South Africa. And we didn't have any, just had ballast on the ship, which holds a ship keeps from rolling over. But it was a severe storm, and we didn't, the ship was empty, so it just bounced around like in a wash tub. And we was down there, we was going to Argentina to get a load of wheat to bring back to Europe, so the people there that were hungry could have something to eat. And from there, that's the last thing, went back to Norfolk, got my discharge. Well, no, I got put on a seagoing tugboat. And what it did, it pulled or tugged submarines from Massachusetts all around Florida on over to Orange, Texas. And the submarines were to be put in mothballs. That's where they secure them so they'll remain in good condition. And then I caught a train, first class, all the way from Orange, Texas to Norfolk. That's where I got discharged. I thought that was about the most interesting part of the interview.
Well, thank you for your service, and it's been a great honor.
Well, you're welcome. You did a good job.
Thank you. I see you brought some pictures and books. Would you like to share some things about them?
I'd like to show you the family that was in the war. This is my twin brother, Kermit. This is Quentin. This is my sister, Juanita. This is Willard, who flew the B-24. This is Frederick, that was an instructor in Kentucky, and this is yours truly, Kenneth Patterson. This is Willard Patterson. He completed 58 missions over Germany, and he just completed his last mission, and he seems pretty pleased.
He's getting ready to come home.
This is my twin. This is Kermit, and of course that's me. This is a 5-inch 38 caliber gun that we served on, and that's it. Okay, 1, 2, 3. This is Word when he is in service. He's flying the B-24, and this is the type of B-24 that he was flying. Completed 58 missions. We were pretty lucky to get back.
Mm-hmm.
This is a later picture of him.
After his service and everything.